we're going to explore where brand leaders are spending their time and money to build communities, cultivate loyalty, and supercharge sales. Please welcome up our three panelists, Katie Welch from Rare Beauty, Chetal Norton from IMAX, and Bianca Belluri from Wella Company. So a huge welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Katie, I would love to start with you. Rare Beauty, I'm sure we've all heard of the brand. It's a mission-driven brand founded by Selena Gomez. Donates 1% of each sale to the Rare Impact Fund to support mental health charities with the goal of raising $100 million by 2030. I'd love to know how you communicate that mission to your audience and what strategies have been most effective.
Okay, great, big question. First, thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here. So when Selena decided to create Rare Beauty, she had an idea for a beauty brand, but really she wanted to create something bigger than makeup, something that could help. She wanted to make a difference in the world. And she felt that by celebrating people's individuality, celebrating their uniqueness, as well as starting positive conversations around self-acceptance and mental health, that she could really make a difference. So that is our mission. So our mission is to do just that with Rare Beauty. And so we communicate that because we started with that at our core. In fact, we actually launched the Rare Impact Fund, Rare Impact and the Rare Impact Fund in July of 2020, where the brand launched. The first product was for sale in September of 2020. So we launched our mission first. So really underscoring the importance of the brand purpose. So it's built into everything that we do, whether it's well, you could say as small as, but I think it's actually a big part, the shade names. They're all positive, but then also in the work that we do. We do a lot of community engagement and community building, and in listening to our community, we heard from them early on, in early 2020, that they wanted trusted resources in mental health, that these conversations weren't happening in school or at home. And so we knew as a brand that that's a moment that we could make an impact. So could we create something that we call the Rare Beauty Mental Health Council? And it's comprised of members within mental health, within nonprofits, within academia, all of whom advise us on our content strategy, on our mental health strategy, as well as any eventing that we do. So when we heard this from our community, we knew that we could create these trusted resources and point them in the direction of some people, of our Rare Beauty Mental Health Council. So it's everything from the products that we name to activities that we do. There's a ton, so we do summits, but I'll let other people speak. But it really, truly is, it's in the heart and the core of all that we do. And I think that it speaks to the authenticity. It speaks to who Selena is and what her mission is and why she wants to make a difference. And I think it's why it's resonated, because it's not just a marketing initiative.
It's ingrained into every part of the brand and the way you communicate with people. Great. Chetal, I'd love to come to you. So IMAX, the #1 premium movie experience in the world with 50 million tickets sold each year. From a marketing perspective, just talk us through how you engage with customers and what are some of the challenges and opportunities of that model?
Yeah, thank you. IMAX is a little bit different to probably what most of you expect. We have 1,800 theaters in 90 countries around the world. We don't own any of those theaters. We release over 100 movies a year. We don't own any of those movies apart from maybe 1 or 2 documentaries. And our studio partners who own the movies, their marketing spend is probably 100 times what we do. Our exhibition partners outspend us significantly as well. So the challenge we have is we don't own our theaters, we don't own the movies, and our partners outspend us. But that's also a great opportunity. The opportunity is that if we can create great creative that stands out, get noticed, and cuts through, we can get millions and millions of free earned media placement through our exhibition partners. A big part of what we do as well is if we can educate our studio partners on the value that IMAX can unlock for them, we can get and put IMAX front and center in their massive marketing campaigns. It doesn't just lift the IMAX boat, it also lifts all boats. A great example of that is Alien. I don't know if you saw the recent Alien movie that came out a few weeks ago. If you drove around LA, on all the billboards, the IMAX logo was 3 times the size of the Alien logo. Every single TV spot had burnt-in IMAX, experience in IMAX throughout the TV spot. And it really worked. Alien delivered $330 million at box office, which is probably $100 million more than they expected. And IMAX, on less than 1% of screens, delivered 12% of the box office, which is pretty phenomenal. So we're in a very privileged position, but it is a really interesting one where we play a game of influence a lot with our partners.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on some of the opportunities and benefits of the model, but what about the challenges?
I think the challenge is that, again, there are movies that aren't ours. There are theaters that we license to people. So I think there is that challenge that we have to overcome that. I think we have to overcome that with education, with information, and really showing that this is not about making IMAX winning. It's kind of how can we win together. And I think there's a lot of research that we have as well that shows that by leaning into IMAX, we did some research on this, and they said if you put an IMAX logo on a movie poster, people are 80% more likely to go and see that movie in a theater, or their perception that this is a must-see in the theater event. So we know full well that a lot of people don't live near an IMAX. We have most movies for 1 or 2 weeks. You might not get around to seeing it to week 3. You might want to see the movie at 7. We can only play it at 6. You might not want to pay the extra $5 to go and see it in IMAX. There's a lot of reasons not to see it in IMAX. But putting that logo there elevates the movie and makes people get off their sofa, get in their car and get to a theater. And that lifts not just the IMAX boat, but it lifts all the other theaters in that multiplex as well. So I think that's kind of how we try and overcome that challenge.
That logo is almost like the gold stamp.
It is.
Yeah. Bianca, Wella company also has this very unique model in that it sells to different customer types. So retail partners like salons, direct to consumers, freelance stylists. So how do you use data and technology to really reach those different customer segments in a kind of relevant, personalized way?
Yeah, well, I think the pro market, the B2B market that we're in is really interesting. I always say that pros are humans too. So in many ways, it may not be the same D2C model or direct consumer model, but we have to still make sure that we're building the same consumer insights and pro insights. But the way we do it is actually on a human level and then on a digital level. Mm-hmm. So the benefit of the B2B and the pro market is that it's still very hands-on. At the end of the day, you can't color somebody's hair through the internet. And as a result, we actually get to engage daily, weekly, hourly with that community. And we're lucky our office has a beautiful salon. So we actually leverage every single touch point to fuel our marketing on the consumer side. So it may influence, for example, when you're talking about a product detail benefit that the pros are telling us that they're experiencing, with the consumer in their style seat, we'll leverage that messaging and what we bring to Ulta or what we bring to our own websites. And so that allows us to get this really great 360 loop. And then we have the sort of digital side of it, which is a lot of tech stacks on every digital interface that we have so we can understand what they're engaging with. So that is really robust when it comes to this world of B2B because so much is education based. So you have to be extremely content rich and quite long form as well. Mm-hmm. And so the more you can put on your site and the tech that you can add to it to be able to decipher who's clicking on what, when do they jump ship, when do they stay around, we leverage that in what we then bring to the consumer side, but also then how we continue to fuel the engagement on the pro side. Mm.
And what are some of the challenges that you face around capturing that data and curating the customer journey?
Yeah, so I've spent most of my career on the consumer side. So you get put in this seat and I think it was said earlier, customer acquisition. So I just jump into we can do all these lead gen strategies, but that's really great from a consumer perspective. But a pro is just a human. He and she, they're driving, they're on TikTok and Instagram. But the problem is that usually their email is actually not the same email from their business. Mm-hmm. And so you can't deploy the same strategies and assume you're going to capture them because I can upload a lookalike model, but it may not work in driving capture because turns out, their Instagram is not their business handle. And so we have to go a couple of layers deeper. So partnerships and cross collaborations is extremely important and like-minded, culture moments and community moments. And also another one is partnering with more traditional infrastructures like IMAX, because at least we have a shopping behavior and a cadence there. That's really interesting. But it's complex, and it's the biggest challenge I think we face. And the US market of professionals is extremely diverse. And so it's unbelievably fragmented. That you're used to in the European model being major salons, and here it's a lot of independents. And so if you are renting a chair somewhere in the middle of California, I want you to know about my brand, but it's really hard to find you.
Yeah. Coming on to that point, Chesil, you've talked about the nichification of culture. So how are you using data insights to reach different kind of subsections of your audience and speak to them in an authentic way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nichification idea for me, I think is really profound and relevant. And I think it's, IMAX, like I said before, we are the #1 premium network in the world, but IMAX is absolutely a niche brand. We only sell 3% of theater tickets are IMAX tickets. So we are a small brand. I do think I think it's quite liberating to think of you that way as a niche, because if you're a niche, like Kirsten was saying before, you have to be authentic to that niche that you're serving. And being in the niche, you can only be authentic if you understand 100% who you are, why you exist, what you are for, and what you're against. And you kind of act as one of the niche that you're serving. I think at IMAX, we very much do that. In IMAX, if you come to the office, we are filled to the brim with kind of super geeks and nerds and kind of gremlins. And it is really kind of tangible when you walk around there that people are there because they truly love film and movies. And they care a disproportionate amount about our own little part of that process. In the same way that people like Nolan, who we work with, cares ridiculous amount about everything that he does. And I think that's really reflected in it. And I think that's really reflected in the marketing that we do, where we kind of, everything we do comes from a place of fandom and love and passion and craft. And I think that allows us to be very kind of relevant and kind of cut through in that way and come across as a really kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a wholesome, genuine brand that people really kind of relate to and draws us back to us time and time again.
Yeah. Katie, on that point around fandom and building a really passionate community, I think Rare Beauty currently has 8 million followers on Instagram and 4 million followers on TikTok. So what are some of your kind of top tips on building an authentic community?
The community, first of all, we don't even think of them as fans or followers. We know our community. Like, I know that at Unwritten Roses is Sydney Caplow. Sorry, Sydney. We've gotten to know them, and that's what we've done over the last 4 years. Is we see them, we hear them, we value them. One of the things that we do in our community building, one of the things that we noticed was that our community is comprised of a large proportion of Latina individuals. And so we started creating Spanish language content, not just for Latina Heritage Month, which just started, but always on. And it's incredible, and it's not just that it's in Spanish. So it's not like we took a traditional TikTok or an Instagram and translated it. But no, first of all, our team, some of whom it's a language that they speak at home. So they're in the community, in the culture already, and there are inside jokes. There are nods to the culture that really resonate with our community. So when we say they're seen, heard, and valued, it's not just 3 words that you write on a PowerPoint slide. It's really, truly walking the walk and talking the talking that we're doing. Something that we launched just today, and we're so proud of it, is our Rare Consejos campaign. And Consejos is Spanish for advice, because we believe in beauty that beauty advice can be so much more than a product recommendation, so much more than, hey, this Rare Beauty mascara is great, which it is. But in fact, it could be a moment of connection, a moment of seeing someone, hearing them, valuing them. And so when you are recommending a beauty product, that advice has so many layers to it, so much dimension to it. And so a piece of Rare Consejos that we discovered through one of our team members is a flower does not bloom alone. And so if you go to our Instagram, Rare Beauty's Instagram, you'll see the content, and it's content that we partner with Las Fotos, which is an LA-based nonprofit organization which mentors young individuals in photography and in creative. And they shot this content, and it's people both of our community, of our team, and as well as in Las Fotos. And it's just beautiful, and they're all under this theme of a flower does not bloom alone. So I think that is just one of my favorite, it's probably one of my favorite campaigns to date, although I will say every time we launch something, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite. But it really is a perfect example of listening to your community because there is still a thread of mental health with that. We're all about wanting to connect people, not let people feel alone. How do we provide the tools to feel less alone in the world? So celebrating this idea of community, that a flower does not bloom alone, but doing it in their native language, in a Spanish language, celebrating our Spanish community, our Latinx community. And then in the creative, I think it visually communicates it so beautifully. It's really special. It's really touching me. So I hope it resonates. But I'm very proud of the team. I can proudly say I had nothing to do with it. That it was the entire team that took it and ran with it, and I'm proud.
Bianca, how are you building brand loyalty and really rewarding your community?
So actually, we just, similar to True Religion, just relaunched our rewards program. Again, so the interesting way that we took it and changed it was that we really made it for everybody. And so in the community of the stylist world, there's beauty schools, there's independents, there's salon owners. So we made sure that this loyalty program spoke to everybody. We also have a digital side of it by launching an app. We have a lot more engagement on it. So we're able to see in real time how people are engaging, because we have a lot of exclusive content education that comes on the app if you're registered. We also take points from no matter where you shop, because the reality if you're an independent, you're not buying bulk orders from brands, you're picking up something on your way to color someone's hair. And so as a result of that, we want to make sure that we can give you loyalty no matter what you want to do and where you choose to shop. So I think that's really interesting. But then also on the data side, we have a really clear understanding of how people shop. And it gives us the opportunity to be more personalized in our approach. And the one thing that's really exciting about how we reward our community is actually through points, but in a way that you can use it for things that maybe added value to you. And so it's not just going to be a point for $1. It may be a point to earn cash back to help pay for your rental chair if you're an independent stylist. So I think in certain communities, we have to really think, and I think you said it best on True Religion, is you have to think from the consumer insight first. So what are the struggles of your community? And if you're going to build a loyalty program, you have to at least be able to circumvent one of those things that they have, either in a positive reward or in a problem-solving environment, especially when, as a brand, you're dealing with your competition and loyalty as a retailer. And they have credit cards and they have the ability to build a basket. So the point system is so much more rewarding. And so I think for us, we have the uniqueness to bring in these sort of not non-endemic, but things that are outside of just a product reward or a dollar reward.
Mm-hmm. Chetal, there's so much pressure on brands at the moment to really stand out, to give something unusual, different, possibly divisive as well. How are you creating a culture of kind of innovation and marketing excellence at IMAX?
It's a great question. I think it starts for me with, I think what is great marketing and what's great creative. And I think, and this is a very kind of stating the bloody obvious kind of answer, so don't kind of get too excited. But great marketing and great creative is essentially finding a customer insights, matching that with product truth, executing that in a surprising way, and targeting the right people. So super obvious, but I think we look at this as a soapbox I'm very happy to kind of climb on. I do it frequently, so bear with me for a minute. But if you look around, I would say that we live in a world of average. Go into any coffee shop, they all look the same. So many clothes look the same, cars look the same, marketing look the same. However, as human beings, instinctively, we know the stuff that we notice is the stuff that stands out, that is unusual, that is different. And there's also a ton of data on this. There's a UK research company called System 1. They did a great partnership with Eat Big Fish and did a great report about the cost of dull advertising. And this report's available. You can Google it, you can find it, you can download it. It's 40 pages, it's brilliant. But they essentially say not only is more than 50% of ads dull, they also highlight how extraordinarily expensive dull advertising is, particularly when you compare it with advertising that isn't dull. So I think there's a lot of things we talk about where we have to do more with less, and that's true. But I'm not afraid of that. As a creative, I'm really excited about that because the magic is great creativity. So if you have great ideas and great creative, you don't need big budgets because they're going to get noticed without having to spend a fortune to make it noticed. So I think that's a big part of it. So for me, my creative mantra has always been, okay is the enemy. Because okay work is dull, it's instantly forgettable, no one's going to remember it, it's not going to do anything. You might as well just put the money in a wheelbarrow and light fire to it for all the good it's going to do for you. So I think
I love this answer
leaning
so
into
much.
the creative is that's the secret sauce, and that's what we try and do. So I think it's just being bold, being brave, and also trusting your gut and trusting the data, and also understanding that, we are so obsessed with data, but I think data is super important. But I think the most important thing isn't the data itself, it's the quality of analysis that we apply to it. Because we can use data for all sorts of crap, right? We love a dashboard, and we can prove that we get clicks and likes and whatever else. It may not move the needle, but we can prove it, so we use it. I think data exists to find true insights and then use that as a foundation to execute bravely and distinctively, and that's where kind of money and reward and fame sits.
Yeah. I feel like with data, you need curiosity.
Okay, is the enemy? I want stickers. Let's. I think you could brand that. Mugs, T-shirts, stickers. We'll put it on our laptops.
We'll do it.
So then when everyone's like, just do that.
With or without my face on it.
I mean, that's up to you.
At the cost of dull advertising. And Chetal, I know you said before you would rather create a campaign that people hate than a campaign that people forget.
Absolutely. I think there's so much, again,
okay as the enemy.
So much data out there that, the biggest danger is not that people don't like what you do, it's that they don't know you're doing it in the first place. Being obscurity is the biggest danger, and being average is the most obvious way to be stuck in obscurity. So it's much better people don't hate it, because there's, again, lots of research that shows, living in the UK, Kate, you'll know this, there was this god-awful Go Compare ads. Remember them, like 15 years ago? So they were the worst ads you can ever imagine. It was hideous. However, they ran for like 5 years, and those ads were some of the most effective ads they ran during that time as well, because you hated it, but you remembered it. And like Kate remembers them now.
I could sing
still
it
have
to you
nightmares.
right now.
She can sing it. We could both sing it. We don't want to, but we can. And it proves to you, I think, again, stand out. Everything should have sharp edges. Everything should stand out from the crowd. That is the only thing that matters when you create something.
Because everyone always says there's fatigue. There's proof that then there's not. If it works, it got people talking.
Absolutely. I think, again, you've got to get noticed. Yeah.
Katie, how do you create a culture of extraordinary and innovation within Rare Beauty?
Well, that's a big question. Okay, how do I create a culture? Well, it's a team. First of all, it's not just me. I'm one of many. So everyone. I honestly think everyone in the team feels that they're making a difference, and that may sound like a BS answer, but it's truly the most collaborative, kindest group that I've ever worked with. Now, listen, it's still work. No job is perfect. It's still hard. Marketing is hard. But when we get to, today is a perfect example, like seeing this campaign that launched today, seeing the comments, seeing the DMs that I'm getting from the community, and how truly happy people are to be seen, heard, and valued, that makes all of the difference in the world. And when we do things like we have a yearly mental health summit, which sometimes I can't even believe that we were able to pull this off. Again, it's like one of those PowerPoint slides that you create, and you're like, oh, this just lives in PowerPoint and Arial font or whatever. But then 3 years later, we actually did it. We said we're going to kickstart positive conversations around mental health and self-acceptance. It's a great thing to write. But then when you get to actually do it, and when I stood up on that stage, all I did was say I just said good night, thank you, goodbye, thank you for joining us. But to do that and look out in this audience, I'm so sorry, I'm not being a good storyteller. We hosted a mental health summit where we had speakers from our Rare Beauty Mental Health Council, our beauty community, our own community, talk about mental health, talk about connection, really create connection, bring our community together. We've done it both in Los Angeles and in New York, and then we did one virtually. It was such a powerful day. And we said we wanted people to feel less alone in the world. We wanted to start these positive conversations. And we did it. It was a full day of doing just that. And I looked out at the audience. That's what I was talking about, back to where I said my goodbye. Thank you for coming. I looked out in the audience and I saw so many beautiful faces, all of whom were unique and different and their own individual and uniquely rare. And all of whom had become friends with one another. They had made friends, and then they learned from us. We were able to provide these resources. So it wasn't just about selling a lipstick. The lipstick was the way they got there. The lipstick was the way they found out about the Mental Health Summit, or why they were one of 100,000 tuning in live to the live stream. But what the brand was able to do was provide that moment of connection, make people feel less alone in the world. And I thought, oh my God, we did it. I cried because, as my colleague knows, the tears come a lot. That's just maybe because I'm a Cancer, but I was so moved. And so I think that's an example of why when I feel like we've done it and we've created this feeling of impact, both literally and figuratively. And I believe my colleagues feel the same way when we get to do things like that.
Yeah. Bianca, how do you make sure your team are creating those moments of impact? How do you bring innovation, marketing excellence to your team?
So I think on one side, like you said, it's also your team, but it's how you recruit and the culture you build at the company. And so, I mean, I totally agree you have to be in the pursuit of perfection, because if not, it's so easy to let the world of mediocrity just take control. And what is the expression? It's better to get it done than to get it perfect. Yes. Not something I fully agree with. And so I think that a lot of it is actually company culture. And I've worked with brands where it's okay, yeah, get it out, let's do it. And I've worked for brands where you're maybe revising a subject line for an hour and it feels really silly, but that journey of the hour actually makes you sharper and sharper as a marketer. And so if you can instill that in the culture of getting to that level of dedication to what you're doing, I think you can have big impact. And I think it's how you recruit, right? And what are the experience of the people that you bring into the organization, whether it's their brands or their journey of life or their personal motivation. I think to find the people that we're talking about at IMAX, they have a personal drive. And so I think that's a lot of what I try to curate within my team and when I can at a company level. And then also I think the last thing is similar to what you do at Rare. We bring in people to our team who actually knows who we're marketing to. And so when it gets to a B2B business, we have stylists and professionals who are marketers in our team, right, and are e-com leads. And it's great because we're providing different careers, but it's also, there's a gut check in the room when you have a bunch of people making great PowerPoint slides and someone goes, yeah, no, that doesn't work. And you're like, oh, okay. And it creates a dialogue. And so you have that strive for impact for your customers.
They understand the audience because they have been the audience.
That's it.
I would love to know from each of you, as a marketing leader, what's your biggest opportunity right now and what's your biggest challenge? What's keeping you awake at night? Bianca?
Well, what's keeping me awake at night is my children, mainly. She does. But it's actually acquisition. How can you capture an engaged audience when there's a lot of competition around you? So that's one thing that's challenging. And then I have the complexity that I spoke about before. And then the other question was the challenge? Opportunity. I think the opportunity is to provide more like edutainment, because we are not short form in my field. There's no benefit to us to jump on trends. And so we have to be extremely mindful about the content we're creating. And so finding that line where it's actually really useful for the person, there's a true benefit, and it's not just an idea, but then also something that's entertaining because you have to, putting yourselves in the shoes of your customer, you're in the back bar, you're coloring people's hair, you have to get home at night, but you may want to learn something. How can we do that for you in a way that's really interesting? So I think that's our biggest opportunity.
Edutainment, I love that. Katie?
The biggest challenge, man, there's a lot. Attention, getting people's attention. I think that's what we think about all the time, and that's attention is that is key. I mean, think about even yourself as a marketer. I think the most important thing is to think about how are you convinced to do some sort of action, to buy something, click something, whatever it is. Think about your own attention and where that goes throughout the day. And we do this for a living, but I think attention is the biggest challenge right now because there are so many things just vying for your attention. And it's so easy to say, oh, this is the way we've always done it. Do a big billboard, do this, do that, do a direct mail piece. And I don't know, maybe they're right, but the key is creative. I mean, that's the only way. It gets back to exactly what you were saying, that if you don't have creative that's going to break through, you're never going to get their attention. So I think about that a lot. And then how you get that attention. The biggest opportunity for us is continuing to grow our community. I think community marketing is key. I think every brand has the opportunity to grow a community. Every brand has an opportunity to create, to engage a subculture of some sort. I don't think you have to be a beauty brand. I don't even think you have to have purpose. I think if you're going to have a brand purpose, Mark Ritson famously said, purpose is purpose. So if you do brand purpose, you got to do brand purpose right and be meaningful about it. But community is different. I think you can be Scrub Daddy and engage with Clean Talk.
I love Scrub Daddy.
Love Scrub Daddy. So I think community is the biggest opportunity for everyone. Brands can make people feel like they belong, and it doesn't have to be just rare beauty.
I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently. I think at IMAX, going into 2025, our biggest challenge is the size of the opportunity, if that makes sense. So I'm going to kind of set this up a little bit. IMAX is the original premium format. 15 years ago, IMAX was the only premium format. Now that category is getting incredibly crowded, and the perception, certainly amongst customers, whilst IMAX is still the biggest and the best, the perception is that PLFs, so premium large formats, are not as that dissimilar for IMAX. So what we found, though, was that when people were aware that films were custom made for IMAX, our indexing went through the roof. And again, Christopher Nolan is the most kind of obvious person in that. So 2021, 3 years ago, we launched this initiative called Film for IMAX, which launched as a consumer-facing proposition, which is a film is tailor-made for IMAX, either shot with our film cameras or shot with certified cameras. The filmmaker will do a unique finishing on the IMAX version. It will have more picture top and bottom to fill our screens, which means if you see a movie that's Film for IMAX in IMAX, you're seeing more picture there. If you see in a standard theater, you literally won't see the full frame. So we've done that every year for the last 3 years. We've had about between 4 to 7 titles a year. And through that period, we have really kind of done a lot of work to educate customers that if a movie is filmed for IMAX, you really have to see it in IMAX to get the full experience. That's the only place you can get director's full vision. And it's really working. 2 great examples of that in the last 12 months or so is Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2. Again, on less than 1% of screens, we delivered 22% of the global box office on both of those titles, which is pretty ridiculous. And there's a reason why Emma Thomas thanked Rich Gelfond as the CEO of IMAX and her Best Picture Oscar speech, which is pretty amazing. The biggest challenge we have for next year is we have 14 Film for IMAX titles, which means next year pretty much every single movie is Film for IMAX, which is amazing, but it's also a lot. It also means some of the stuff that we are used to doing with our exhibitor partners, getting those amazing placements, we can't ask them to do that 14 times in a year. It also means we have to think differently, think better, be smarter, be more creative, which is super exciting. But I think the challenge is that next year, I was speaking to our CFO yesterday, and she was like, "Hey, it's just a case of not a case of if you're going to break our box office record, it's just how much." And I think that's the challenge for us: is to how do we take advantage of this opportunity, and also from a brand perspective, how do we use that unique opportunity next year to elevate IMAX into a category of its own amongst customers?
It's a great challenge to have.
It really is.
It's a great challenge to have. It's first world problems for sure.
Any questions from the audience?
Hi, I'm Kayla Bell, previously the head of talent at Savage X Fenty, and now I'm at Resource Curls. Obviously, a lot of the brands that I've worked for are tied to community and cultural innovation, but my biggest challenge is always trying to get that budget behind those intentional community building moments. And so I'd really like to know the approach behind balancing your community and brand initiatives and also your performance marketing efforts.
Is that for Katie?
Yes. And whoever would like to answer.
And I should have said my challenge is finance, CFO.
I think that's every marketer's challenge.
I think you can start. So we started community building via Zoom. We did Zoom chats. We hadn't launched the brand. Now, granted, we built the brand during when we were all quarantined in 2020. So we were working from Zoom anyway, and we knew we wanted to get to know our community, and so we created something called what became Rare Chats, and there were Zoom calls with our community. So I think what's great about relationship building and community building is that it should be lo-fi. It should be high touch, but it doesn't need to be these big fancy productions. I mean, some of the community engagement things that we've done are hikes with our community. We've done gratitude journaling courses. We've invited our community to our office. So it's more about that listening and learning from them and hearing from them. And I think once you start to see the engagement at your brand or wherever, whomever you want to engage, once you start to see that, you'll start to see the loyalty will hopefully result in maybe your CFO wanting to give you more budget. But I do think community efforts don't have to be the most expensive things. I would much rather do, sorry to our digital marketers, I just personally love the community engagement more than performance marketing, but I do think it's a flywheel. Is that the corporate term I should use?
That's the flywheel.
It's the flywheel. Thank you.
Correct.
But they go hand in hand. I think you can't do the performance marketing on its own. You can't do the community marketing on its own. Go back to your own attention, how you think of things, what convinces you to do an action for a brand. It's all of the things. It's, oh my God, that brand responded to my comment on Instagram. They sent me something. I saw that billboard. I got that direct mail piece. Wait, I saw that Instagram ad. So it is sort of, and it has to be the creative. And what are you telling the community? So I think when you think about the difference between performance and community, could you glean insights from your community marketing that could inform your performance marketing potentially? And I think that makes your community marketing then very valuable. There's nothing more valuable than understanding your target audience.
I'd also say micro events go a long way versus these. I mean, I think it's challenging on Instagram. Everything looks like, oh my God, this brand did this huge event. Like maybe 7 people showed up and left after 20 minutes.
The angle, right?
Yeah,
like it's just like a great angle.
It also like, oh, look, they had like ice cubes with the brand name inside. Like who cares, right? Like I've taken a group of influencers to like a spa, 5 people for lymphatic massage and everyone cried. And that was genuinely more impactful for the brand than it was any other bigger event. And now the challenge is space and time to do micro events, but at least that is a better pill for a finance person to swallow. Hey, I'm going to do something. It's going to cost about $2,000. Then you're going to do another thing that's not $2,000. Then maybe it's 3, but then you've now built your case over time. So I think that goes a long way.
Jeff,
Yeah.
what did you
No, I was just going to kind of agree with what these guys were saying. And also I was listening to, it's a great podcast called CMO Uncensored. And the CMO for Elf Beauty was on there. And so she said words to the effect of, I think there's 2 things that are secret behind Elf's success. And one of them is the shortness of distance between the community and the C-suite. And she was referencing, a bit like Katie was talking about, going from a Zoom call with Elf customers, going into the CEO and say, we need to make this new product. And the second success is the shortness of kind of insight to action, which also existed there. So I think those 2 are really interlinked. I do think the value of that community is not a cost center. It's essentially an R&D kind of insight, kind of incubators for sure.
priceless?